Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
I'm doing great, Blake. I'm kind of shocked by the amount of spicy headlines that we have for a show that we're doing at the end of March. I don't know how that we were graced with so many wonderful quotes and toxic situations that happened over the course of the end of last week, but here we are. It's probably going to be a very contentious episode, I'm sure, in the chat as well as in our conversations. You were yelling at me before we even started today, 10 minutes ago.
Yes, because y'all are you are smoking Frank Lucas level crack for some of the takes that you're going to come out here today with Bryce Underwood being compared to Cam Newton. The second part of this, I'm going to be fired up about this Lane Kiffin story. People are going to call me a homer. Are you kidding me?
I think there's a lot of overreaction to his comments.
A lot of overreaction to his comments. I'm going to flare out on that. And then I got to be honest with you, this whole Jeremiah Smith thing. I mean,
yeah,
we will get to it, but that's not the most egregious thing that's happened over the last 72 hours. The most egregious thing that's happened over the 72 hours, speaking of Lane Kiffin, we got quote tweeted by him because as his new favorite media member. Of course we did. Then number two, how do you and Jack not know what the Director's Cup is? Y'all just out here. I'm getting blamed for putting LSU at number one. I don't even do the graphics, right? Like I don't even do them. And all of a sudden I'm getting blamed for them. But I do think it's an interesting conversation. Which university has the best top 5 coaches at their universities? And I think that Jack, our producer, who just did the top 5 in the SEC, boy, got a lot of people really fired up here.
Well, the one thing that's kind of funny about all this and what sparked it was the hiring of Will Wade. I don't think that hiring Will Wade really put LSU over the top. I think that they naturally were already up there because of Jay Johnson and Kim Mulkey. You have 2 multi-time national championship winning coaches.
3 national titles. Well, the thing is, hold on now. You have 4 because Jack put Clark in there with gymnastics, and then all of those girls going to the Olympics.
Yeah, So there's no other prolific. There's obviously other great athletic departments, but LSU, not because of football and basketball. It's naturally easy to look at a graphic like that and get upset and pissed off and be like, "Oh, this is a ridiculous thing to say that LSU is at the top." But in terms of current coaches and accomplishments, yes, those 3 coaches carry a lot of weight because where are the other national championships for Texas? Where are the other national championships for Oklahoma and Alabama that a lot of people are trying to argue for? It feels like they're good programs, but not the same level of national titles.
And if you're a basketball guy, do we need to have a conversation about Nate Oates? Because Nate Oates is talked about more than anybody in college basketball, who keeps having Sweet 16 and round of 64 exits.
Yeah. He's one of the more overrated coaches, and this over defensive-ness this weekend when they fell short again was kind of perplexing. I get it. You got to defend your guy, but yeah, I don't know what there is to really. Nate Oates is a good coach, but I feel as though that he's always been put into this upper category.
Then he blamed the SEC and the NCAA for not letting Charles Bediako play.
I did a video on this right after he said that. I was looking for a talking point for a vertical video, and I was like, "There's no way that this is real. There's no way that his dumbass said if we had Charles Bediako, we wouldn't have gotten out rebounded by 13. What? Charles Bediako was averaging 4 boards a game. What that? You think that would have solved? You got your asses beat. Your team was not that good. What?
Right. Oh, so many spicy headlines, Joe. But yeah, we might do those for the Big Ten. Michigan will be hard to beat right now with Whittingham.
I would imagine Michigan probably would be
very hard.
Ohio State would be at the top.
Why?
Because what other sports outside of football?
I mean, Michigan's going to a Final Four. Michigan's going to a Final Four. I mean, to be completely honest with you, to all the Buckeye fans that will be in here, I'm sure we'll transition to Jeremiah Smith stuff. Outside of football, you're not that good at anything else.
I
mean, we're good at hockey. I mean,
baseball?
No, they suck.
Michigan's also not good at lacrosse. Ohio State and Michigan are about the same in lacrosse because their programs aren't very.
So you see what I'm saying? I mean, like outside of football, Ohio State is kind of meh.
I'm just trying to think what Ohio State's next best sport is. Like what would be their next best sport?
Ohio State fans, what's your next best sport? Outside of football, what's your because it's not basketball.
I'm trying to think what that would be.
Grass.
Okay.
Wrestling is what they said.
But they're not even the best. What is that picture?
I don't know. I don't know. Alex says LSU isn't even mad in football, but you suck at everything else. That's the point. They're not, you know good and damn well LSU's not about to be mad in football either.
Iowa carries the weight for Big Ten wrestling because they've got 24 national championships. Penn State is 12.
Yeah,
it's an interesting question. I give Jack a lot of credit. That was a fun graphic.
Yeah, very fun.
Together. Yeah.
We'll continue to do that. Speaking of Ohio State, let's get into the Jeremiah Smith comments. But before we do that, everyone do us a favor by hitting the like and share. Share to all those groups if you're on Facebook and to all those social media pages. You're watching us, listening to us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, notification bell. Wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. If you're on YouTube, stop, collaborate, and listen. Hit the subscribe button down below. We do greatly appreciate you doing that. Every Ruffino and Joe shows by our good friends over at FanDuel. Download the FD Sportsbook app today. Use your mobile device in doing so. Joe and I tell you every single week, every single day, every single episode, do us a favor. Hit that, hit that like button. No, go to FanDuel.com/RG for more details. Joe, I set my preferences. Like, I don't want to spend over $250 a month. Let's just go have fun. It is what it is. I highly suggest everybody to do that as well. Let's please go gamble responsibly, and that's why we're powered and partnered by our good friends and partners over at FanDuel. Again, download the FD Sportsbook app today. All right, let's move on here. So we were just talking about Ohio State, Joe, but some big-time comments coming out of Ohio State the last couple of days. Number one, good to see Kyle Parker got in the news. He followed Cortez Hankton to Ohio State, gets the black strap removed. Kyle Parker looks like he's having a big spring, but he wasn't really the wide receiver that clearly was making headways this week, as it was Jeremiah Smith. Somehow, some way, the conversation got turned into, and I think he kind of forced this, talking about the transfer portal. And obviously everyone, and I quote, everyone knows the team that was coming after me, but I was never leaving this place, end quote. Joe, what do you make of Jeremiah Smith and some of the things that he was talking about here? I mean, clearly it seems like he was talking about Miami. At least that's what everybody's trying to point at here. I'm sure a lot of teams were trying to go after Jeremiah Smith. But your thoughts, I mean, you're in spring. Why bring that part up?
Well, so the first thing that I want to bring up before we get into the accusation that he made, the media that was asking him these questions, it was a little over the top. I just have to put that out there.
Yes, it was leading.
They kept asking him. They were asking him leading questions. It almost got to the point where it seems like he just said, screw it, I'll say something. I'm not a fan of that. I felt like this was unnecessary. We've talked about it a million times over. We know that tampering happens widespread across college football. So like we shouldn't be like almost freaked out to a degree and go like, oh my God, well, that's so unright that was happening. How could this be occurring? It happens everywhere. People float offers to players all the time. Minus the questioning, Miami's hands have been awfully dirty this offseason.
Well, and he's
if
from
this
Miami.
Is true, it has to be Miami. I think that we all know it was Miami based on what he was saying. And it was a school that when he was getting recruited, that a lot of people expected that he would end up landing with the Hurricanes if he didn't end up going to Ohio State. It just seems like it's been a bit of a dirty offseason for them. I'm going to keep using that word because of the Darian Mensah situation and the aggressive push to go and get him and to pay his way to getting him to play for Miami this upcoming year. And if this is true, and this isn't maybe an abstract interpretation of some sort of communication from Miami's end, this is not a great look. And I understand why there's a lot of toxic conversations happening back and forth between Miami and Ohio State fans coming from this, because trying to make a run at the best player in the country who very clearly is not going anywhere, again, it's not a good look.
Well, so let's talk about a couple of things. Let me add on to what you stated here.
Okay.
Joe, I forget how long ago it was, but it was 2 weeks before DeLeone Williams tried to enter the portal. We've talked about this. I came out with a report on AYS like, hey, because everybody was asking about the LSU quarterbacks, right? Mm-hmm. I was like, listen, I know this is going to sound crazy. This is on the AYS YouTube channel. You can go find it, I guess, Joe, 3 or 4 months ago. I'm like, hey, I'm hearing DeLeone Williams to go into the portal and then LSU would be a player. But I also heard that Miami would be a player. So when he announced that he was going in the portal, one of the teams that was in there was Miami. So it's not only like everybody tried to point the finger at LSU, but you had people at CBS who are really good at their job, like Matt Zenitz of 247 Sports CBS was talking about, hey, Miami's going to make a massive push here. They didn't have a quarterback. But regardless, this has been happening with multiple players. Obviously, we could talk about Xavier Lucas. We can talk about Barcade that no one wants to talk about. And then obviously Darian Mensah. Joe, it's more than just being dirty. They've done it. Like this, like there is no, they're kind of being dirty or they're kind of doing something. They're doing it. And I think that we need to understand that, again, I keep going, and I'm not going to go into long detail because you and I have talked about this ad nauseum. When everybody talks about guardrails, Miami's picture should come up for everything that they've done, every single little thing that they've done. I'm going to keep this one very brief. Wilson going to Miami. Joe, I think they were trying to keep heat off of things and letting him go to a visit at LSU because the kid didn't even entertain the visit. Like, I know for a fact that he was kind of blah on the visit and was trying to leave as quickly as he could to go to Miami. And the rumor around that is that they had been doing things to go and get an edge player. So you got all of these situations, whether you started at Xavier Lucas, DeLeone Williams, whether it be Wilson, Barcade, or Mensah, and now you have this Jeremiah Smith thing. So Miami fans can come in here and be very upset. The truth of the matter is that you 1,000%, if you would want to entertain Jeremiah Smith, if he wants to come home, you would do it. You would do it. Mm-hmm. But that would be if it's a one-time thing with Miami. If it was a one-time thing with Miami, I'd be like, you know what? There's no telling what happened behind the scenes. I understand it. I get it. But this is multiple times where they have done things that you look at this and say, hey, man, we all know that this should be against the rules, and yet they continue to get away with it. Now, on this Jeremiah Smith thing, we are alleging here. We don't know what exact school that he is specifically talking about. It just seems like that their hands are
his way of framing it made it pretty clear.
I mean, it did, but he didn't say the Miami Hurricanes reached out to me, right? So I don't want to, you know what I'm trying to do there, but it's pretty obvious that it was them. It's very obvious that it was them based off of what he said. I don't have a problem with you trying to get and be better than what you have been. However, Joe, we have so many instances. Why can't anything be done here? Because, again, I continue to bring up, how is tampering not a problem? How is tampering not enforceable?
Okay, so here's the one thing that I'm agreeing with you just from the general concept of getting caught tampering, attempting to tamper, getting caught attempting to tamper, all the tampering tied accusations, instances against Miami. Their list appears to be the longest out of any school.
No doubt.
Maybe LSU is kind of close there to be fair. Most public, yes, correct. Yeah. There's more public. Ole Miss is probably up there considering the degree of how out in the open that accusation was from Dabo against Ole Miss and Pete Golding. But here's the thing, Blake. they are doing something that in the history of football in general, a premise that is applied to successful teams.
I agree with this.
Bill Belichick has always bended the rules. Any opportunity to bend the rules when seeing fit, he did it. I mean, shit, the guy filmed practices and he tried. There have been so many times that he's tried to play it off like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what was happening, and very clearly knew what he was doing. I'm not going to sit here and blame Miami for trying to operate within the confines of the current system that doesn't really have any rules. I mean, shit, if I'm Miami, I'm Mario Cristobal. I think that this is the right mentality he had. Is it one that is, again, is it a dirty mentality? Is it kind of against the typical good team building approach of not trying to go and poach other team's players? Yeah. Is it against a lot of those principles? Absolutely. But if no one's going to come and hunt you down, no one's going to hold you accountable, why not push the limit until you are? Why not keep pushing until you are? Miami historically as an athletic department has been one that has pushed limits. So I think that this is something that, as much as we can scoff at, shouldn't be something that we're surprised by. If you're given a chance to go and put together an elite roster by means that have not historically been legal and probably won't be legal in, let's say, 10 years by the time there maybe is some sort of legislation, I think you got to take advantage of that window. So I'm kind of mixed on feeling about this.
Could you imagine Jeremiah Smith, Malachi Tony, and Barkate with Darian Mensah and Mark Fletcher?
It's the best offense in the country.
Well, I would wait to see what their offensive line is, but it'd be damn hard pressed to find somebody better. You'd be damn hard pressed to find a better overall offensive individualized talent and team. Mm-hmm. But I'm with you there. However, there's got to be some unwritten rules, right? Like, for example, remember when Kirby Smart came out there and was clowning the shit out of Cristobal? And really and truthfully, yes, was he clowning with him? Yes, are they good friends? Yes, are they all under the Saban tree and all this kind of stuff? And they're close and they're, but that's not what I heard. What I heard was exactly everything I thought Mario Cristobal was doing. He's telling his players to get away from Mario Cristobal because he's going to give him more money. So there's got to be some unwritten rules here in reference to, like, hey, man, we all get it. We could all do it, but we don't because there's unwritten rules here. And they're not going to abide by that. But it goes to your premise. Why should I do that if it makes my team better? Like,
their former boss, though, the thing is, their former boss has also been a coach that has blurred the lines on what is right and what's wrong.
Without a doubt. I mean, they learn from the best. You're 1,000% right there. However, it gets to a point where something's got to be done, though. Let me ask you this. How many allegations and things with Miami has to happen before somebody puts their foot down? And let me tell you another thing, too. Yeah. Jim Phillips giving them all of the playoff money also sets a bad precedent. Let me tell you why it sets a bad precedent. Because, hey, you did all of what you did to get to a national title, so we're going to give you all the money. Go do it again.
The thing with your question about how many allegations need to happen before something. Well, here's the thing is that they're really, I don't even know if I would classify them as allegations because it's kind of to the point where it's.
Well, Mensah's not an allegation. Barkate's not an allegation. I mean, Xavier Lucas is literally not an allegation. Those things happen.
The one defense of the Darian Mensah situation, yes, it was a forced tampering to a degree, but they still are paying a buyout. They're still operating within the confines of. They didn't do what Pete Golding did, where they just took a player who signed a contract. They're paying the buyout, and
he had to pay.
They did. Luke Ferrelli did have to pay.
Yeah, he had to pay.
Okay, never mind then. But my point was they operated within the
Ferrelli and Mensah. But here's the thing: Miami might be technically paying it, but on paper, Mensah's paying it.
UConn just hit a 3. I think they just beat Duke.
I saw that.
Holy shit! Sorry,
Dan Hurley, bro. So Paul's. Damn, Duke hit a 3 on LSU in women's basketball. And now a 3 is going to beat them.
Damn it,
dude!
I had picked Duke. That's
why did you do that? Why did you do that?
Because this Duke team was good. They were really, really good. I also don't like Hurley. Hurley was at Rhode Island when I was at Rhode Island. I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. You know that they just flipped the score, don't you? Because it was 44-29 at half, and it's 44-28.
They were dogging them.
They were dogging them, and they
insane.
literally flipped the second half. Yeah, I mean, the truth of the matter is, really quickly, Reed came out, and those 26 big points that Reed just had. He's 10 of 16 from the field, too. Big center. But anyway, the bottom line here with me, Joe, on this is at some point something's got to be done. Like you can't keep having these same things happening and nothing happen. Here'd be my question: does Jeremiah Smith want to turn him in? Does Ryan Day?
But I don't think so. I think that this is my whole point that I brought up at the beginning is that these were over the top leading questions that were being asked by these reporters. They were egging him on. I think that was well. Why didn't someone step in there? Okay, why didn't some of the Ohio State media step in?
Hold on. Let me defend them, and I don't know these people, but let me defend something very quickly, okay? This is the first time that they've been given a chance to talk to Jeremiah Smith publicly. There are things that happen when you cover an individualized team that are rumors upon rumors upon rumors that build. And when you get the first opportunity to ask that player, like, hey, man, it might have not been public, but at the local beat, we know for a fact that Miami was talking to you. I'll give an example. Kayshon Boutte, Malik Neighbors. So when Brian Kelly was coming in, Nick Saban went after them. And it built up in the local media over and over and over and over again. The first time that we got those players, we asked, hey, man, is this legitimate? And Kayshon Boutte said, yeah, man, he tried to give me more money.
But Jeremiah Smith didn't want to answer the question originally.
No, he didn't.
And it has nothing to do with him, really. It kind of doesn't have anything to do with his.
It really does, though. It really does.
But if he doesn't address it and he doesn't talk about it and they just move on, nothing changes his.
Well, here's another thing too.
Character isn't affected by it. His draft stock's not affected by it. His season's not affected. That's what I'm saying. Nothing's affected by it. It has everything to do with Miami.
His stock might have gone up if he would have gone to Darian Mintz instead of Julian Sand.
Well, okay, but I'm kind of just trying to say here that him responding to this only stirs controversy that didn't need to be. And him also not saying the school directly also kind of builds the drama of the whole situation. If a kid doesn't want to answer a question and it's going to create these kinds of headlines.
I get it, but I do understand. But at the same time, when there's so much that's built up through message boards and all this kind of stuff, like, let me give you an example. When are you going to ask when is somebody going to ask Jeremiah Smith if he was tampered with? Joe, you can agree or disagree with it, but when you cover a local beat, that is what happens. I'm just telling that because people are going to continue to push and push and push and push until the question's asked and he answers it. The only thing that he could have said was no comment. But I'm telling you, it's just how covering a local team happens. I've literally lived this. So I don't want to defend the media, and I know everybody wants stories and all these different stuff. But at the same time, you do have an obligation to go out there and say, hey, man, we know that they were tampering with you. What happened?
All right, I guess. I mean, I totally agree with that, but I get it. I get it.
I don't completely agree with it either, but at the same time, I guess I definitely understand it. Well, you know who could have been tampered by Miami?
Who's that?
Trinidad Chambliss, because the Mississippi Appellate Court is going to deny the NCAA's formal inquiry into the appeal of him playing a 6th year in college football. Joe, is official that Trinidad Chambliss is returning for a 6th year. I mean, look, man, people think I hate Ole Miss or whatever. I don't. this is massive for Ole Miss to put this behind him because Trinidad Chambliss is one of the best quarterbacks in college football, and he returns for the 2026 season. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that this is – we've already talked about this at length, and there almost wasn't very much of an expectation that the NCAA was going to succeed here. To me, that this is just a final reminder this offseason of how inconsistently powerless the NCAA is unless there is some sort of national legislation. And what I mean by inconsistently powerless is that they've been successful in other circumstances. They'll probably be successful against Chandler Morris. They were successful against Joey Aguilar. And here, they were the victims of dealing with a judge that is a supporter of Ole Miss. There was just going to be no way for them to be able to get through this. Like, until we get, again, this is something that we've said 100 times over, until we get some sort of national legislation, there are going to be one-off inconsistent situations like this. There is going to be contradictions, a ton of contradictions. There are going to be situations very similar to this that won't go through. There will be situations that are more logical for eligibility to be granted to a player that don't go through. I think that this is just that constant, continual relation back to the point that we need some sort of national legislation. And I have no freaking idea if we're ever going to get that. I feel like we've gotten to the point where it's almost improbable that we're ever going to get that because of the inconsistent back and forth between the Democrats and the Republicans when they've tried to work together on putting to some sort of a bill together. So this is just all the same shit. All of it just keeps happening over and over again.
All right. This needs to be the final stamp that teams need to face penalties if they sue inside the state, the NCAA. This is a loaded deck with an appellate court who has people from Ole Miss on it. Joe, I went on Crane and Company about a month and a half ago and had a debate because it was a segment that they were doing. And Brad Logan, like Brad, don't dislike Brad. So what I'm about to say is not a dislike to Brad or anything like that. I asked him a simple question. Where's the judge from? Where did he graduate? And he said he didn't graduate from Ole Miss. I'm like, we looked it up right there. Yes, he did. You have an appellate court judge. Guess where he graduated from? Guess where he graduated from? You guessed it. You guessed it. This is a joke. So there's two things about this. As we continue to talk about this, I don't hate that Trinidad Chambliss won the case. Because if you can put it together that Ferris State messed up, by all means. But Joe, we got to understand that a Mississippi judge that graduated from Ole Miss would not allow former Ferris State employees to talk on record and have the record out there about what happened. With all due respect, I would also lie for $4 million for my son. Joe, would you lie for your son if it meant $4 million? And so
isn't that?
No, hold on. You would lie.
I guess, but it's also perjury.
Perjury's not going to. A slap on the wrist versus a chance at $4 million. I'm sorry, I would do it. You think that the Mississippi State Court or anybody in the state of Mississippi is going to arrest Trinidad Chambliss's mother or himself for lying on the stand? Then we're smoking crack here. We have got to get to a situation. This is what I know. President Trump's going through a lot of things, and you kind of talked about the politics of this. An executive order's got to go down that if you sue the NCAA in your own state that your university's in, then you forfeit the right for that player's a year of eligibility. This has got to get outside the state courts. Here's what I'd do in the executive order. I would make it federal. Every one of these need to be made federal. You can't have a loaded deck. Do I still believe that there were a lot of things that look like he didn't play because of an illness? Yes. The problem that I have here is that you can't go through a loaded deck like this just so you get what you want. Going to the court is supposed to be fair and just. Joe, when you go to a courthouse and you see the lady with the robe with the balance beams and they're even, you know what that means? It's called the balance of justice. There is no balance of justice here. That is what our democracy was built on, and it's not currently happening right now with situations like this in college athletics. The NCAA, people are mad. They didn't even stay. Yeah, you wouldn't even let the Ferris State coach come and testify. So there are two things. It seems to me that there was an issue, a health issue at Trinidad Chambliss. All right, if that is the case, then let's go on, right? Let's go on. Let him play if that's what you deem. That's not the problem here. The problem that everybody has is not that Trinidad Chambliss is playing. The problem that people has is that it was a loaded deck. And so this is just a final, like you called it, a rubber stamp, final stamp on it to say, hey, man, these kinds of things have got to be fixed.
Right. That has generally been the misconstrued element of this, that there's an assumption that if you're against Trinidad Chambliss winning this case, it means that you don't want Trinidad Chambliss to be playing. That's not what this is. It has everything to do with the process being not only flawed, but deeply, incredibly flawed. It is setting precedents for bigger, more negatively impactful situations in the future. There is a clear path, as it was pointed out in the statement that was released by the NCAA in this effort to try and get an appeal on the case, that they're at the whims of biased judges. And you just need to sue within your own state and hope that you get a judge that roots for your program, graduated from your law school, whatever it might be, and you're going to have a strong likelihood of it going your way. This is a very messed up system. There should be no capability to sue for eligibility. It should be clear cut. It should be black and white. There should be exceptions, and there should be definable points to hit those exceptions. And if you don't, the NCAA says you don't, you need to move on. I'm not saying that Trinidad Chambliss didn't deserve to play. The medical aspect of it, it seems like it was a reasonable argument. But to have been told by the NCAA no, and then to go through this process is where the whole issue gets incredibly murky and messy. So we're going to keep saying this every time this happens. Every time that there's a new lawsuit, Blake, we're going to talk about it. We need some sort of national legislation. I have no idea when that actually happens, though.
I don't either. Again, to your point, in these sorts of situations, multiple things can and are true. However, this is one of those instances that you look at this and say, Joe, here's what I keep asking myself about Trinidad Chambliss. Was justice actually served? Was justice actually served? Because regardless if he won or not, if this was a fair and just trial civilly, then we can say, okay, well, it makes sense. Now we don't know. Because, Joe, what if that Ferris State head coach would have came up there and said, they told us and they asked us not to file a medical red shirt? Then you have a he said versus she said. So you know what happens when that happens. Then you got to provide other evidence. Do you have what if the NCAA was able to bring in a third-party doctor to say, yeah, the mono that the kid had, yeah, I mean, he shouldn't have been out as long as he was. Something else had to have gone on. What if they would have allowed that? So again, I don't know if justice was served. Not really. But, Joe, I mean, Ole Miss, it's a massive win for them because he's a fantastic quarterback. God, he's a great quarterback. So, right. Obviously, when we break down Ole Miss, we'll definitely talk about Trinidad Chambliss.
Yes.
That's definitely the case. All right, let's move on here. Oh, God. Here we go. Just a little forewarning here. Before the show started, Joe and I were getting in a debate about this specific topic. So here you go. Turn the volume probably down because I'm going to be screaming here. But, Joe, my God, what are we doing? New Michigan head coach Kyle Whittingham compared his new quarterback, Bryce Underwood, who, by the way, before Michigan fans, I know you're going to a Final Four. You're happy. We just defended Kyle Whittingham till kingdom come. We are massive Kyle Whittingham fans here. We are also not trying to take away from Michigan. However, Cal Whittingham came out this week and stated and compared Bryce Underwood to Cam Newton, Heisman Trophy winning, national champion winning, number 1 overall pick, Cam Newton. What are your thoughts on Cal Whittingham comparing Bryce Underwood to what might be the best quarterback that we've ever seen grace us in college football?
First of all, Kyle Whittingham is not the first person to do this.
No.
Kyle Whittingham is not the first person to
show DeLeone. So
No, because there have been, before this kid stepped foot on a college football field, many recruiting analysts had described him as the next Cam Newton. Like, it is not. We are not sitting here talking about a unheralded player who suddenly burst onto the scene that has looked great, or maybe even a 4-star quarterback that had tools but was super raw and wasn't fully there. We are talking about one of the most highly recruited, most highly covered athletes in the history of college football. He was one of the most decorated players to enter the college football sphere, the world that we see. He is one of the most gifted players that has been talked about. This isn't something that came out of nowhere. He has been hyped up since he was being recruited and was established as the number 1 quarterback in his class. To put the label on him, a kid who is 6'5", 230 pounds. I know that you think he's lighter than that, but he's 230 pounds. Can probably run at least 4.5, might be faster than that, and has a cannon for an arm. To compare him to a player who checked all of those same boxes is not ridiculous. Is he Cam Newton? Is he Cam Newton right now? No, absolutely not. He's not Cam Newton yet. He was a freshman last year. He's developing. He's growing. He is improving. He is getting there. But is the potential that he has Cam Newton? Absolutely. Blake, I think that one part of this that needs to be discussed here, when you have a guy that is as physically talented as he is, that has all the tools to go on to become an elite NFL player, to win a Heisman Trophy, to become one of the best quarterbacks in the country, what is a realistic middle of the ground comparison for him?
Not Cam Newton.
No, hold on. When you have a guy like this, there are the ceiling is high, or you don't hit it at all, and nothing, your career fizzles out. There is only a ridiculously high comparison for a player like this. Because what else am I supposed to compare him to?
Stop comparing. Number one.
No, we can't do that. We're sports fans. We can't do that.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Stop comparing him to arguably one of the best college quarterbacks that we've ever seen in our lifetimes. Because I'm old enough to remember what Cam Newton, who, by the way, went to the combine, look this up if you want to, it's 6'5", 248 pounds. So I would assume during the season, he was a lot heavier than that, at least going into the season. Because you and I both know that you don't go into, because dudes are going to cut weight at the draft or at the combine. You know that.
No. Well, no, someone like him would benefit from having his weight up. So I disagree with that. The pre-draft prep stuff, you're with a nutritionist.
He's 250 pounds. I don't need Michigan to lie about him. I think he is 6'5". I've been around the kid. He's not 230 pounds.
You were around him in high school. When was it? You were around
right now and tell that he's not 230 pounds. I can tell. Regardless of that, I don't care what Michigan tells me about what his weight is. He's not. Do people understand and remember what Cam Newton did at Auburn? Do we remember what Cam Newton did in the NFL? Do you understand the level of comp that you're giving? Do we really understand an NFL MVP who was running dudes over, defensive linemen in an era of the SEC where they dominated, going into the NFL and dominating dudes. Do we understand?
Era of the Big Ten where they're dominant. Just have to throw that in there.
And he's not doing it. Because I'm old enough to remember in 2007 when he would come in and literally take away from Tim Tebow and run dudes over at the goal line and had 5 rushing touchdowns as a freshman to the Heisman Trophy winner, by the way. The Heisman Trophy winner. We have got to get away from comparing them to all-time greats. Joe, he literally put an entire team on his back and won a national title. If you want to, I will concede one little point. If you want to say the highest part of his ceiling is there, maybe. But let me tell you what Kyle Whittingham doesn't know. He doesn't know in 2 weeks of being around this kid that he is arguably one of the best quarterbacks that ever played college football. He doesn't know that. I'm sorry, he doesn't. So y'all comparing this dude to a guy who did this to everybody he played. Please stop. Cam Newton might very well be the best quarterback that we've ever seen based off of what he did in that one single season. No one was bigger. Joe, he's a defensive end doing things at the quarterback position that we've never seen. He's running away from DBs. I'm sorry, brother.
Okay.
Y'all got it. This comparison makes everybody look like y'all are smoking Frank Lucas level crack.
But Blake, you're painting it out to sound like, first of all, that Bryce Underwood doesn't even touch physically what Cam Newton.
He doesn't.
But you're making it out like we're talking about Mac Jones. That's where I'm so really.
You know why? Because
he's not far off athletically from Cam Newton, and he's a freshman.
He can't. Wait, hold on. Pause. He can take the ball 20 times and run and do the things Cam Newton did. He's not built like that.
He's started 1 year, and physically,
Cam Newton as a freshman.
Cam Newton as a freshman and Bryce Underwood as a freshman, similar physical profiles. I am not sitting here, and I imagine that Kyle Whittingham, because his full quote, by the way, was as far as his charisma, his stature, big dude, 6'4" plus, 240 pounds, live arm, great athlete. And then he talked about how, flashes the smile and all that stuff, very similar in terms of his leadership capability, all that stuff. But Blake, there's no comparison here to say that at this current moment, Bryce Underwood is going to be Cam Newton and he's going to walk into this year and win in a Heisman and have a historic season. It's not what anyone's saying. If we are extracting the tools and the player play style and what he can become,
Joe, that's the problem.
He can't really be Cam Newton.
No, they can't.
About that,
their play styles are not the same. Their play style is not the same.
Wait, do you remember during the year last year that we talked about Sharon Moore and the offense not limiting Bryce Underwood and not letting him run?
And you know what I remember? As a true freshman, as a backup, Cam Newton had the same amount of touchdowns as Bryce Underwood, who was a full-time starter. As a true freshman. They don't have the same play style. That's another problem in this. I've seen Cam Newton take direct snaps on a power quarterback run over and over again to beat Nick Saban.
But they're not calling that. They weren't calling that last year.
And they're not going to call that for him now. They're not going to do that for him because
why
he's
do you
250 pounds. He's not built like Cam Newton.
Cam Newton wasn't 250 pounds when he walked in the door. Nobody's their physical profile when they walk in the door as a freshman and when they leave as a senior.
For a Heisman Trophy winner. And the play style is him getting up at the goal line and running dudes flat over. Their play styles are not the same.
You are arguing that a kid that had a perfect 100 grade on 247 Sports, regarded as, again, I'm going to continue to repeat this, one of the greatest high school recruits ever to come out.
Yeah.
You're arguing that he can't become one of the greatest quarterbacks in college.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that he can't become Cam Newton because their play styles are different. There's a different body type. There's a different body style in what Cam Newton did. Name another quarterback because they're not the same. Can Bryce Underwood be one of the best quarterbacks in college football's history based off of his skill set? Yes. Can he do it the way Cam Newton did it? No.
I am not directly saying that he is going to run power 10 times over and they're going to use him that way.
That's the point. Then
because I think that where you are completely off on and where I think that there is physical proof, Cam Newton was rare. Cam Newton was rare was because he was built like a defensive end and he had a huge arm and he could run 4.5, whatever. He was really fast. Bryce Underwood is exactly that. He's just not, he's 15 pounds lighter than that. He's got to add the weight to get there. But if he gets it,
he's 20 to 25 pounds lighter than that, and you know it.
If he gets up to 250, if he gets up to 245, somewhere in that range, then he is going to be as big as Cam Newton.
His body cannot take that.
He's got room to add to his legs. He's got room to add to his arms. I think he's got plenty of room to add to his frame.
No, he does not.
I would argue that makes him even more dangerous, that he's got more weight that he could potentially add, which you're not going to agree on.
He can't.
He's still growing and developing.
I agree, but then come up with a different quarterback to compare. And I understand that Whittingham's comments are to the extent of like, okay, well, he reminds me of this. Well, then you're comparing. When you throw that name Cam Newton out there, you're comparing. So everything else that Whittingham said after that is bullshit. To me, it's bullshit. Their play styles aren't the same. They don't do the same stuff. I've seen this dude literally as a true freshman walk off into Florida, Urban Meyer saying, Tebow, get out, Cam, get in, and him dominating the red zone. Dominate. Cam, Bryce did not do that. Quite frankly,
they couldn't do that with Bryce. They can't do that with Bryce because he's the only quarterback that they had last year. Wait, hold on. Let me.
Auburn only had
one. They chose to do that last year because of weird coaching decisions by Sharon Moore to not enable him.
I both know that Michigan is not going to do direct snap QB powers over and over and over again to go to a national title. You know that, and I know that. That's not what they're going to do because he ain't built like that. Nobody.
He was a freshman, Blake. You're acting like he can't get bigger.
And I remember, and this is the fifth time I told you. The fifth time I told you, this kid, Cam Newton, walked in there to Florida at 240, 245 pounds when he stepped up on that field.
Did he come out of the womb 250? Did he come out of the womb 250
pounds? He came out the womb chiseled, and they're different players. You know who you need to compare him to?
Who?
You want me to tell you who he's really? No, you want me to tell you what I think he's more comparable to?
What?
I think he doesn't have the mechanics. Athletically, he reminds me of different quarterbacks that are better in the pocket and can be better than the pocket than Cam can be. Like, I think of very high athletic 4.5 running quarterbacks. I think of like Andrew Luck, but Andrew Luck was a quarterback that mechanically was superior to everybody. Bryce is not there. But when I look at what Cam Newton did, it's a bad comp. Like, I look at him in the fold of the Andrew Luck's highly athletic, completely athletic. But I look at him and I see Cam. I just think Bryce is going to be a better overall passer than him. I don't think he needs to put on that weight. I don't. They're two different styles of quarterbacks. Cam Newton is one of one. No one's going to touch unless there's another 6'6", 250. Jared Lorenzen and Cam Newton are the only people 250 plus that play quarterback in the SEC.
I also, by the way,
shout out to Jared Lorenzen.
Yeah, shout out to Jared Lorenzen. Blake, I'm just I'm so off on your framing of this because you're basically saying no one can ever be Cam Newton because nobody has
I'm
the
not going to say
same.
no one can be.
Nobody has the same
Bryce
physical
Underwood.
profile of Cam
They
Newton,
don't.
and the first guy that has walked onto the field that is the
Joe,
same physical, or at least
hold on.
close.
Pause. Time. At this point in his career, Cam Newton was 6'5", 250. Bryce Underwood's not there. So now what's your excuse as a sophomore?
I guess we'll find out how much Bryce Underwood weighs at the beginning of the season.
We'll
find out how much he weighs at the NFL Combine, too. If he's 230, I'll take back what I said. If he's 230 at the NFL Combine, I'll take back what I said.
He ain't going to be 250.
What if he's 250 at the NFL Combine in 2 years?
We won't remember this conversation, and I'll delete this entire episode.
I swear to God.
Joe, he ain't going to be no 250. He won't. He won't be.
I just don't know how you can body type him like that. I don't understand how you can limit him like that.
When I look at Cam Newton, I see a physically imposing tree. When I see Bryce Underwood, I see quarterbacks more like an Andrew Luck, highly athletic.
He's equally as physically developed. He's just 15 pounds lighter.
No, he's not. Joe, 15 pounds is a massive difference when you're running over dudes in the SEC and in the NFL. You know it's physically different. Stop that now. Joe, you think that he's going to be able to do what Cam Newton did in college in the NFL? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I think that he's capable of that.
All right,
I don't think that's it. You're acting like I'm comparing Fernando Mendoza to Cam Newton. That's what you're acting like.
No.
Like I'm trying to grab like a 6'5" guy and go like, oh, he's basically Cam Newton. That's not what I'm doing.
Quarterbacks that have been athletic that we know that have been out there.
But it's not the wait, hold on. But it's
Daniels to him. You comparing it to Lamar.
And hold on. Wait a minute. Time the fuck out.
Yes.
It was okay for me to compare Jayden Daniels to Lamar when Lamar also was one of the most rarest. He's actually,
yes.
Lamar is a more rare athlete than Cam Newton is, by the way, because there's Dante Culpepper and Anthony Richardson and other guys that have kind of had similar big frame, strong arm builds. No one is as smooth of a mover as Jayden Daniels and Lamar Jackson. Those two guys are two of two.
The problem. But
that was okay.
But
that was okay.
Problem. Think about what you just said and think about this. Cam Newton was running away from everybody still, but then would run them over and say, get the fuck out of my way. That's the difference.
I don't think that we were afforded the opportunity to see if Bryce Underwood could do that because Sharon Moore was coaching scared.
He can't do it. He ain't good.
Joe, find out this year. First time he runs somebody over, I am tagging you. I promise you that.
And let me tell you this. If you tag me when he runs somebody over from UNLV, I'm not accepting that.
That's not going to count. I'm not going to do that.
I need him to run the ball like Cam Newton would do 15 to 22, 23 times in a game. And if that's how you're winning, by all means, I'll eat my words. But no one in college football was more imposing than Cam Newton. No one.
I don't disagree with that. I just don't think it's crazy to assume that Underwood could get there.
He ain't gonna get there. He won't get there. All right. Yeah, we kind of
tried.
All right. All right. Here's another one since I'm already pissed off. Joe, I was at this press conference this week, and Lane Kiffin said some words to the media. Let me give some context to what happened. Lane Kiffin was asked about Harlan Berry, somebody that you've brought up on the show multiple times. He asked, could he have an emergence like Kawan Lacey did this past season? And Lane Kiffin said, whoa, guys, pump the brakes. That's one of the best running back seasons of a guy that I've ever had. By the way, he had Reggie Bush. Just throwing that context out there. He also came out and stated, guys, we're in day one. So this comment by Lane Kiffin was the first time that he got to see his team in underwear and helmets. And he said, guys, listen, there's a lot of individualized talent. I clipped my question, by the way, which goes into this, which was basically a follow-up of that stated when Lane was like, look, man, there's individualized talent that is on this team. But to go where we want to go, we have a long way to go here. A long way to go. On3 wrote an article that was so asinine, and the headline states, Lane Kiffin gives, and I quote, harsh reality about where LSU football is at the current moment. Why? Because he said that a team that he's only been around for one day in spring football has a long way to go. This is a joke of an article. It's a joke because it's not what he said. I was there. So, Joe, I ask you how you react to this, but this is a flat-out joke. Saban, Ryan Day, Kirby Smart, Dan Lanning, Kurt Cignetti. By the way, did you see Kurt Cignetti this week? Why didn't anybody write about Kurt Cignetti telling a player to get those stupid-ass gold cleats off at a practice? Why aren't we talking about that shit? But you're attacking Lane Kiffin here on saying, hey, guys, it's day one of spring football. No, I don't know if we're going to a playoff. This is a trash-ass article.
Blake, I think that my whole issue with this, it's been blown out of proportion because of the fact that it's Kiffin. He's under the microscope. He was one of the most covered coaches transitioning jobs that we've ever seen. This is a totally normal premise. And also on top of this, how Lane Kiffin operates. It's just we've never paid this close of an attention to him when he was talking at a press conference. But now that he's at LSU and everything that transpired, quotes like this are going to go significantly more viral. Like he is under-promising with a hope to over-deliver. Is that really a crazy thing for a coach to do? Coaches do it all the time. No. Is that really a crazy thing to do for him to step in and say that we've got a lot of work to do? And to go into the locker room and tell his players that we have a lot of work to do? I was listening to Jordan Seaton was also talking about this, how there's an attention to detail and a focus on work and improving and getting better. Blake,
pause.
think that if he's –
pause. Yeah. I was standing right in front of the man when he jogged across the other field and got in the interior defensive line's ass saying they look soft as shit. So to your point, I mean, he's literally yelling at them, telling them that they're soft as shit.
Like, what the hell else is Kiffin supposed to say about his team? He's trying to set the tone early that what is on the table at the current moment isn't good enough. He can't glaze his team and then tell them that they need to do more when he talks to them in the locker room.
Like Brian Kelly.
Right. Like to what you're talking about here and saying practice has just started. There is a long climb.
Joe, we were in day one.
I will say this, though. It does kind of beg the question to me, what would be an underperformance for them this year? I do think that with all the money that they spent and all the big name players that they brought in, I don't think it's ridiculous to at least say if this team doesn't win 9 games, it would feel like it was a non-successful season.
I don't disagree with that.
It would feel like after everything that they just got right back to square one where they were with Brian Kelly.
I don't disagree.
It's to this point, to get to 9 wins, you have to start from somewhere. And how you communicate and being direct with how you communicate, I think this is a very deliberate way of talking about his team. And I think that a lot of people don't realize that Kiffin is very deliberate, very, very deliberate. And this is simply just an example of that.
Well, he came out literally. Hold on. This is the wildest shit ever. He retweeted this, by the way, just so we're all aware. Because I followed up with that question. The question that everybody's talking about was, okay, you got a long way to go. Explain Trinidad Green to me. The viral clip that went out this week was a question from your boy here. And he talks about him, Ty Benefield, which, by the way, if he's not top 3 on your safety board, you're smoking crack there too.
Okay.
And Jordan Seaton. But you understand Trinidad Green and Jordan Seaton because they've been 5 stars. They've been at the top of the mountain. He talks about the work ethic. So to your point, I followed up. Okay, I'm asked, explain Trinidad Green then. He goes, you want to know what makes all of them dudes different? They're up in here working their asses off religiously. And we still got a long, long way to go. You want to be great? Do what Trinidad, Jordan Seaton, and Ty Benefield are doing, and all of our players in here would be great. That's exactly what his comments are to me. This article, by the way, from pull up. Dun-dun, we're in jeopardy. This article by Thomas Goldkamp. I'm sorry, it's a joke of an article. You got to listen to all of the context. You're comparing Harlem Berry to the SEC and the nation's leading rusher a season ago in Kawan Lacey. And he's telling everybody to calm down. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? I don't expect, Joe, here's what I would say. I don't expect Harlem Berry to have 2,000 rushing yards this year. Do expect him to catch the ball out of the backfield a lot, which if you've been out of practice, regardless, it's asinine. They're trying to find any little thing that they can on him to make this look bad. A harsh reality. What's the harsh reality? They had a harsh this is how I read it, just so we're clear. They had a harsh reality day one of spring football with no pads on. All right, this question comes from Lisa. We got a question. That's how I read that article. Lane Kiffin had a harsh reality day one of spring football with no pads on. That's a joke.
So it's overly reactionary.
Which, by the way, I'm going to tell you this right now. I said LSU was going to have 8 wins, maybe 9 at max last season. That was my final prediction. After going to fall camp, that was my prediction. Okay? They won 7. So I was a little off. They were worse than what I thought they'd be. But my prediction was 8 or 9 wins. This team is light years more athletic than where they were a year ago. Light years. Their offensive line easily is already better than what they had. So I don't know what that means. I have no idea what that means. I have no clue what that means. But it rubs me the wrong way when you want to continue to put hit pieces out.
Well, I mean, this is only just going to continue to happen because, again, he is the biggest villain in the sport at the current moment because of the way that he operated. And I said this to you.
Not Will Wade right now.
well, in basketball. But I said this to you when you hired Kiffin, and now it applies as you go and get Will Wade, and everybody's pissed off at LSU once again. This is just the reality. LSU is the villain in college athletics.
Good.
I think they'd lean into it. Yeah, exactly.
By the way, did you know that AYS's Mississippi views are up 1,600% in the state of Mississippi? Did you know in the last week they're up 20,000% in North Carolina?
Wow. Shit.
Well, I mean, they're pissed. I got more shit about Will Wade saying I'm glad he's back, and I thought Sean's your buddy Sean Anderson's comment. We just want to be okay. We're not asking you to be UConn here. All right. We got some super chats. $5 from Shaquan says, don't know what to expect of Kentucky, but who's the team y'all think they could clip, as Blake would say? Because I mean, they got a lot of good talent. Yeah, who's the team, Joe, that you think could clip somebody across, and like we're not really talking about? You know, my Big Ten team.
Well, he's asking who Kentucky could end up.
He's asking Kentucky
because he said who's the team that y'all think they, as in Kentucky. But so to this point, I do think that this Kentucky team is sneaky good. The more that I've looked at their portal class, they pulled a lot. I like the approach. It's a little risky, but the approach is essentially going and grabbing guys that were blue chip recruits, or at least 4-star, like highly rated recruits that didn't really pan out, or something might have happened. They brought in Cedric Baxter, brought in Minchie, they brought in Lance Hurd. I think if there was a team that they randomly knocked off,
Bama early at home.
Yeah, well, Bama at early with a new quarterback. Maybe they knock off and shock LSU, or Florida is a team that they could end up beating at home. I think it's totally possible that they end up producing an unexpected outcome and winning like 8 games next year. It's plausible. It's very plausible.
Yeah, but look at their road games: at A&M, at South Carolina, at Oklahoma, at Tennessee, at Missouri. I don't really know there. I don't really know. I need to look more into Kentucky before I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. Royce Pierce with a $50 super chat says, been missing y'all live, but been on top of the podcast. Keep killing it, guys. Go Tigers. Thank you so much, Royce.
Thanks, Royce. Appreciate
We
you.
definitely appreciate you always being in here. Alex says, Joe, Bryce can't hit the broadside of a barn. Also, Witt will run him into the ground. Whittingham. Look at his track record. Also, 0 quarterbacks have been drafted at Utah. Yikes. Is Alex Smith the last quarterback to be drafted?
I want to say yes, but they haven't had prototypical rare athlete quarterbacks like Underwood.
Yeah, this is the most athletic quarterback that can. I didn't say this in that segment, but here's what I kind of feel like. I feel like Kyle Whittingham's been around trash-ass quarterbacks for so long that he gets somebody like this and compares him to Cam Newton.
Okay. Fair. Okay. He was a 60% completion percentage quarterback last year. So to say that he can't hit the broadside of a barn when he was completed 60% of his passes as a true freshman, and he had no receivers, he has some of the most unreal. I went back and rewatched just some of his highlights. I didn't break down his film. He's got some really nutty throws, and he's got a weird throwing motion that needs to get cleaned up. Yeah, he can really drive the ball into some tight windows. I think that you need to be less critical. I know Alex, he's a Michigan player, and you can't give him the benefit of the doubt. But
that team up north, man, he can't say that. He can't say that at all. All right, we're out of here. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Spring break is upon us for most of the country this week. We'll see y'all soon. Y'all have a good night. Peace.